You're 25 years old and you just got your first real paycheck from your first real job. You're making $50,000 a year, which feels like all the money in the world compared to what you made in college. And you know what the first thing you do is? You go car shopping. Not for a reliable used Honda that'll get you to work. You're looking at a brand new truck or sports car because that's what successful men drive. You tell yourself you've earned it. You deserve something nice. And the dealer's more than happy to put you in a $60,000 vehicle with a 7-year loan at 6% interest. Your payment is $850 a month, and you're proud of it because it makes you feel like you've made it. Fast forward 3 years, and that truck has depreciated $30,000. It's now worth $30,000, but you still owe $45,000. You're underwater, you're locked into a payment that's eating 20% of your take-home pay, and you can't sell it without writing a massive check you don't have. That vehicle you bought to prove you were successful is the reason you can't actually become successful. My name is Smith, and I spend way too much time thinking about how the car decisions men make in their 20s determine whether they build wealth in their 30s and 40s. If you're someone who thinks of your car as an extension of your identity, and you can't figure out why you're not building wealth despite having a good job, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, because what I'm about to show you is going to make you realize that the $30,000 mistake sitting in your driveway is the single biggest obstacle between you and financial security. So let's talk about the $30,000 mistake most men make. And I'm being specific about men here because the data shows this is predominantly a male behavior. According to research on auto loans, men are significantly more likely than women to buy new vehicles, to finance larger amounts, to choose longer loan terms, and to prioritize vehicle status over practical transportation needs. This isn't about capability or intelligence. This is about how men are socialized to view cars as status symbols and expressions of identity rather than as transportation tools. Here's the thing. The mistake isn't buying a car. Obviously, you need transportation. The mistake is buying way more car than you need at the exact moment in life when you can least afford it, and then defending that decision with rationalizations that sound reasonable but are actually costing you your financial future. You tell yourself you need something reliable. You tell yourself you'll keep it forever so the cost spreads out. You tell yourself interest rates are low, so why not? And every single one of those rationalizations is your brain trying to justify an emotional decision with logical sounding reasons. Here's what most people don't realize. That car purchase in your mid-20s isn't just about the car. It's setting a pattern of financial behavior that's going to follow you for decades. You're establishing your baseline for what you think you deserve, what you think success looks like, and how much of your income you're willing to spend proving those things to other people. And once you set that baseline high, it's incredibly difficult to lower it. Now look, let me show you the actual math on this, because once you see what that car decision really costs over your lifetime, you're gonna wish someone had shown you this 10 years ago. Let's say you're 25, making $50,000 a year. You buy a $60,000 truck with 10% down and finance $54,000 at 6% over 7 years. Your payment is $793 a month. Over 7 years, you'll pay $66,616 for that truck. The truck itself will be worth maybe $20,000 when you're done paying for it. You spent $66,000 to own something worth $20,000. That's a $46,000 loss. But here's where it gets interesting. That's not the real cost. The real cost is the opportunity cost. What if instead of spending $800 a month on that truck payment, you bought a $15,000 reliable used car with cash and invested that $800 a month? At a 7% return, after 7 years, you'd have $85,000. After 15 years, you'd have $230,000. After 30 years, you'd have $960,000. You're not choosing between a $60,000 truck and a $15,000 used car. You're choosing between looking successful now and having $1 million later. Now, you might be thinking, but Smith, I need a reliable vehicle for work. Used cars break down and cost money in repairs. And sometimes that's true. But here's what most people don't realize. Even if you spent $3,000 a year in repairs for a used car, which is way more than most reliable used vehicles actually need, you'd still come out massively ahead compared to the depreciation and interest you're paying on a new vehicle. New cars lose about 20% of their value the moment you drive them off the lot. On a $60,000 truck, that's $12,000 gone in an instant. You could fix a used car's entire engine and transmission multiple times for that money. Think about what's actually happening when you finance a new vehicle in your 20s. You're committing 20 to 30% of your monthly take-home pay to a depreciating asset for the next 5 to 7 years. That's 5 to 7 years where you can't save for a house down payment. You can't build an emergency fund. You can't invest for retirement. You can't take career risks because you need that car payment. You've locked yourself into a lifestyle that requires your current income level, and that takes away all your flexibility and freedom. The truck that was supposed to represent success is actually preventing you from achieving success. Here's the psychology part that nobody talks about. For men especially, vehicles are wrapped up in identity and masculinity in ways that make rational financial decision-making nearly impossible. You're not just buying transportation, you're buying proof that you're capable, successful, strong, competent. You're buying the image of the man you want to be. And car companies know this. They spend billions on advertising that explicitly connects vehicle ownership to masculinity, success, and status. Think about truck commercials. They're not selling you transportation, they're selling you an identity. They show you successful men, working men, family men, all driving these trucks to do important masculine things. The message is clear. This is what successful men drive. If you don't drive this, what does that say about you? And your 25-year-old brain, desperate to prove you're a successful adult, buys it, literally. This is where it gets really interesting, though. The men who actually become wealthy, the ones who retire early and have financial freedom, almost never drive expensive cars in their 20s and 30s. They drive boring, reliable vehicles that cost as little as possible. They understand that cars are tools, not identity markers. And by keeping their transportation costs low during their accumulation years, they free up money to actually build wealth. Let me give you a real example. Two guys, both making $60,000 a year starting at age 25. Guy A buys a $50,000 truck, finances it, and then every 7 years trades it for another new truck because that's what he's used to. Guy B buys a $15,000 used car, drives it until it dies, usually about 10 years, then replaces it with another $15,000 used car. For 50 years of driving, Guy A will spend about $350,000 on vehicles, when you account for payments, interest, insurance, and depreciation. Guy B will spend about $90,000. That's a $260,000 difference. But wait, it gets worse for Guy A. If Guy B invested the difference in monthly spending, about $600 a month, at 7% returns over 40 years, he'd have $1.5 million. Guy A's decision to drive new trucks his entire life cost him $1.5 million. His vehicle choices literally determined whether he could retire or not. That's not hyperbole, that's math. Now look, here's what most people don't realize. The expensive car trap is especially dangerous for men because it's self-reinforcing. Once you've established yourself as someone who drives a nice truck, you feel pressure to maintain that image. Trading down feels like admitting failure. Your friends drive nice trucks, your coworkers drive nice trucks. You've built an identity around being a truck guy or a car guy, and that identity is expensive as hell to maintain. And here's the thing that kills me. A lot of men will aggressively defend their vehicle purchase as a financial decision. They'll talk about reliability, resale value, warranty coverage, safety features. They'll say they're planning to keep it for 10 years so the cost spreads out. They'll say they got a great deal. But these are rationalizations, not reasons. If it was really about reliable transportation, you'd buy a 5-year-old Toyota Camry with 100,000 miles for $12,000. That car will run another 100,000 miles with minimal maintenance. But that's not what happens because this isn't actually about transportation. Think about the actual needs you have. You need to get to work, you need to run errands, you occasionally need to move stuff. That's it. A 15-year-old Honda Civic meets all those needs, but it doesn't meet your psychological needs for status and identity, and that's the disconnect. You're spending tens of thousands of dollars to meet psychological needs that could be met in much cheaper ways if you were willing to separate your identity from your vehicle. Here's what most people don't realize. The car you drive matters way less to other people than you think it does. Your coworkers aren't judging you for driving an older car. They're too worried about their own lives. The woman you're trying to impress cares more about your character and stability than your vehicle. Your friends who judge you for your car aren't really your friends. You're spending money to impress people who don't care or whose opinions shouldn't matter. Now, you might be thinking, but what about contractors and business owners who need trucks for work? Totally fair. If you legitimately use your truck for work, if it's generating income, that's a different calculation. But be honest with yourself. Do you really need a $60,000 loaded crew cab with leather seats and every option? Or would a $30,000 work truck accomplish the same business purpose? Most guys buying expensive trucks aren't using them for work. They're using them to look like the kind of guy who works with his hands, which is a $30,000 costume. Let me show you some action steps because understanding this doesn't help unless you change your behavior. First, if you're currently in a vehicle loan that's eating more than 10% of your take-home pay, figure out how to get out of it. Sell the vehicle even if you have to roll negative equity into a smaller loan for a cheaper car. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it feels like admitting defeat. But staying in an unaffordable vehicle loan is way worse than taking a short-term loss to fix the problem. Second, separate your identity from your vehicle. Your worth as a man has nothing to do with what you drive. Your masculinity isn't proven by your truck. Your success isn't measured by your car. These are marketing messages you've internalized, not truths. Once you decouple your self-image from your vehicle, you can make rational transportation decisions instead of emotional identity decisions. Third, calculate the true cost of vehicle ownership for any car you're considering. Don't just look at the monthly payments. Look at insurance, gas, maintenance, depreciation, opportunity cost of the capital you're tying up. Most new vehicles cost $1 per mile to operate when you account for everything. Used vehicles cost 30 to 40 cents per mile. That difference adds up to tens of thousands of dollars per year if you drive a lot. And that difference is adding up to tens of thousands of dollars per year if you drive a lot. Fourth, adopt a drive it until it dies mentality for your next vehicle purchase. Most reliable cars will run 200,000 miles with basic maintenance. That's 15 to 20 years of driving for most people. If you buy a good used car and commit to driving it forever, you'll spend a fraction of what people who constantly upgrade spend, and you'll have way more money to invest in things that actually build wealth. Fifth, redirect your vehicle payment to wealth building. If you're currently paying $700 a month for a car and you switch to a paid-off used car, invest that $700 a month. In 10 years at 7% returns, that's $122,000. In 20 years, it's $306,000. In 30 years, it's $713,000. Your car payment is actually your retirement fund. You're just giving it to a bank and a car manufacturer instead of keeping it for yourself. Here's the deeper truth about why this matters. Vehicle decisions are often the first major financial decisions men make as adults, and that decision sets a pattern for everything that follows. If you establish a pattern of spending money to project an image, you'll do that with your house, your clothes, your hobbies, your lifestyle. But if you establish a pattern of making financial decisions based on actual needs and long-term goals, you'll do that consistently too. Your vehicle decision isn't just about the vehicle, it's about what kind of financial decision maker you're going to be. Think about it like this. The guy who drives a 10-year-old Camry despite making six figures is signaling something important. He doesn't need external validation. He's secure enough in himself that he doesn't need stuff to prove his worth. That's the guy who's going to retire at 50. The guy who's upgrading his truck every 4 years to maintain an image is signaling that his self-worth is tied to external markers. That's the guy who's going to work until 70. Now you might be thinking, but I worked hard for my money. Don't I deserve to enjoy it? Absolutely, you do. But here's what most people don't realize. Enjoyment and spending aren't the same thing. Spending money on a depreciating asset that causes you stress because the payment is too high isn't enjoyment, that's suffering. Real enjoyment is having financial freedom, having options, having security, and you get those things by not wasting money on vehicles you don't need. The uncomfortable truth is that most men's vehicle choices are driven by insecurity disguised as aspiration. You're not buying the truck because it'll make your life better, you're buying it because you're worried about what people will think if you don't. You're worried you won't measure up to other men, so you spend $30,000 extra to quiet that insecurity. But it doesn't work, the insecurity is still there, you just have less money. Here's my challenge to you. If you currently have a vehicle loan that's more than 10% of your take-home pay, spend this week calculating the true cost of that vehicle over your lifetime. Include the loan amount, the interest, the depreciation, and the opportunity cost of investing that money instead. Write that number down. That's what your vehicle is actually costing you. Then ask yourself if it's worth it. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to realize that you're spending a fortune to drive something that does the same job as a vehicle that costs a fraction of the price. You're going to see that your car decision is the reason you can't save, can't invest, can't build wealth. You're going to understand that the men who look successful and the men who are successful are often completely different people. The $30,000 mistake most men make isn't buying a car. It's buying way too much car way too early in life and then defending that decision instead of fixing it. It's confusing transportation with identity. It's spending money to project an image instead of spending money to build a life. And it's a mistake that if you don't correct it, will follow you for the rest of your career and determine whether you retire comfortably or work until you die. Your car doesn't make you successful. Your decisions make you successful. And the most successful decision you can make is driving the cheapest reliable car you can tolerate and investing the difference. Do that, and in 30 years, you'll have $1 million. Keep buying new vehicles, and in 30 years, you'll have nice memories of trucks you used to own. Choose wisely. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.